So, for the last 3 months, I've had a very special person working on the channel with me. Joel!
Hey guys.
Surprise! He's been here the whole time. He's my YouTube producer, and yeah, I just want to come on here and do a little Q&A and kind of share about why I brought him on and just answering all the questions you guys have submitted about working with a team and workflows and processes and all of that fun stuff.
Sounds like fun.
So for me, yes, I did start the channel by myself relatively and decided to make the hire kind of end of last year. And there were a lot of things that went into that decision for me. At that point, I think I recognized that the main bottleneck for me to grow further was just making more videos. At that point, I had already proved myself. I have what it takes to make a good video. I had already made viral videos at that point, and I already felt like I even had a core loyal audience at that point. And I understood what my own style was. I knew that style would continue to evolve, but I was like, okay, I know things are working. I know that I've done a lot of the right things, and I have a general idea of what I want the channel to continue to look like and feel like. And it's taking me a ridiculously absurd amount of time to make a video. And so because of that, I knew that the main bottleneck was like, it wasn't knowledge. It wasn't needing to make more videos to figure more stuff out. It was just getting videos out. And because of that, I'm like, okay, I need someone to help with the production. Now, at first I didn't really know what I need to hire for. Did I need a scriptwriter? Did I need an editor? Did I need a researcher? Did I need a thumbnail designer? Who did I really need? It wasn't until talking with a lot of my other YouTube friends, many of whom did have producers, for me to be like, oh, okay, I don't have to just outsource any one thing. I like editing. I like scripting. I truly love it all. So I didn't want to just completely offload something, but I was like, oh, producers exist. That's great. I can hire a generalist to kind of help me with many things. And that's, I think, when I decided to make that hire and exploring it more seriously. I think when it comes to deciding who you want to hire, it really comes down into what is your main bottleneck and what do you not like doing. I think when it comes to producer versus editor, producer is going to be more generalist. Producer is going to be helping you throughout much more of your process, and you are still going to be doing a lot more of your process as well, which for me is something I absolutely love. I love YouTube, surprise, surprise. When it comes to if you really don't like editing, for instance, though, then yes, I would absolutely say hire an editor first, because you want to offload something that is bringing you down, that is making the process so much more difficult for you as soon as you feel like you are able. So that's kind of how I would make the distinction there. It just kind of depends on what's your biggest bottleneck and what are the things that just truly drain you and make your life feel miserable, and hire out those things first.
There's a bit of a distinction between maximum efficiency or just efficiency and enjoyment in the process, where typically the information that's shared when it comes to YouTube is hire an editor as fast as possible, because the only bottleneck in a YouTube business should be filming. But there's a difference between having an efficient process and having a process that you enjoy and that's aligned with what you like and your vision going forward. And as April said, she enjoys this process, and for her to do it long term, she likes to be involved in it. She likes to edit her own videos every now and then. She likes adding elements of her personality to it and keeping it fresh with her style and stuff like that. So I think that's a big distinction. There's all kinds of different flavors, so hopefully that helps inform the decision as well.
When making this hire, I definitely knew I didn't want to do this out of pocket because of the full-time nature of it. I think that there's a difference between doing something freelancing versus doing something full-time. When you are hiring a freelancer, it might be okay to put extra from your own pocket because you have the ability to stop at any point, and that is okay. It's normalized within the industry. Versus if you're making a full-time hire, it really is your responsibility to make sure that you can continue paying that salary forever, pretty much. And when going into this hire, there was a lot of math done to make sure that I could support that. And from our side, it made sense because kind of all of our supply of videos on the main channel are now sponsored, which means that if we make more videos, the channel is going to make more money and will make more than enough money to be able to support us. So that's kind of what I did in my head. In general, I would say if you have the extra money to be able to use to hire a freelancer, I wouldn't say you can't do it, but I really would recommend not using money as a crutch to outsource things before before you have figured them out on your own. Don't say, oh, I'm not making the types of videos that I want to make, but I have extra cash, let's hire an editor. No, take the time to figure out, what do you want your style to be? Go through the process. It's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, but figure out how to do it yourself first and do it well yourself first. Because then whatever hire you make after that, is empowered to be able to do so much more because of that base work that you've already done. So I'd say when it comes to deciding if you want to make a hire or not, yes, I would definitely try to get into as regular of a release schedule on your own first. I think this is going to be a weird analogy, but if you're having problems, hiring someone to fix the problems is like having problems in a marriage and thinking, oh, let's have a baby. That'll fix things. No, it's just you're adding more complexity into an already rough situation. Instead, do as well as you can on your own first. And if things are working, but you just want to take things to the next level, that's when you're going to hire versus thinking, oh, I'm going to hire and that's going to fix all my problems. Because ultimately, you are the only one who is going to fix all your problems. No one else is going to fix your problems for you. It's got to come from you. In terms of content ideas, being able to, when I first brought Joelle on, having 4 ideas already ready to go on the calendar, knowing what our North Star was and what our task was and what our challenge was in the beginning, I think was really helpful in just getting us both aligned on the same page, being able to work together. Obviously, I know that that's not realistic perhaps for everyone. Even now, we're struggling on getting ahead on ideas, but I do think that having at least a few in the bank to know what you're working towards before making hire is probably going to make your life a lot easier. I'll kind of break down the hiring process that I did here because it was very intentional, and I'm really interested to see what your reaction to this whole process was as well. Basically, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I was given was hire from within your community first. See if you can get that fit there, because people who are already your viewers are more likely to already be familiar with your style and thus are going to probably be a better fit versus if you just go off of something like Fiverr and someone who has no context into what your channel is. So I took that to heart, and luckily when I hired, I did have some established audience already, so I felt somewhat confident that if I made like a community post, people were going to see it. I've seen this work even for people who have like much fewer subscribers than I did at that time. It just kind of depends on how engaged your viewers are, what's your community post likes looking like, how many people are seeing that. So for me, I made a pretty extensively long job description, I would say, wrote that all out, and then posted on YouTube community posts and Twitter, which I also have a little bit of an audience on, and then Instagram. I don't really have like a big Instagram following, but I was like, oh, like maybe some of my friends would see it and then maybe pass that off to people who they thought might be interested. So those were the 3 places that I posted that job description. From there, I got a lot of applicants. I had a pretty, I would say I had a pretty extensive job application process as well, just in the form that they had to fill out. From there, I received 138 applicants. Of those, I extended interviews to 17 of them. Of those, I extended paid work trials to 2 of them. And of those, Joelle took the cake. Yeah. So that's kind of what my own process was like in hiring a producer at a very high level.
Do you know where I found the application out of all of those? I don't remember if we talked about this.
My guess would be YouTube community post.
No.
No?
Yeah, no.
Where?
It was actually Instagram.
It was Instagram.
Yeah.
I think you said that you did send me a DM at some point, like months earlier, that I like completely did not see and may have ghosted you.
Yep.
But hey, it all worked out.
Like cold calling never works. Like
no, it works. It works. I think the easiest thing I can do here is just pull up the job description and kind of walk through the different sections of it. The different sections that I had. First of all, I just had a little opening, kind of like a cover letter for myself about what I was looking for and a little bit more about the channel itself and the context behind why I was making the hire. At the very top, kind of in that first page, I also put above the fold, which means still on that first page without going into the second page, just some of the top 5 things I was prioritizing and specifically hiring for. Shorthand, something someone could easily skim through and kind of immediately get a sense of, oh, like, might I be a good fit for this role? After that, the next page, I go straight into the job description itself and more tangibly, what are the responsibilities? I have listed some tangible tasks within short-term responsibilities, but I also have a little section making it clear that my vision for the role long-term would likely evolve a lot based off of how we work together and what the person liked and didn't like in the future. The next section was details and compensation. I specified that this would be a Los Angeles role, but willing to consider remote jobs if you are really awesome and willing to work in the US time zones. Just pitch me why you're the right fit. This is something I would say overall, just a plug, I took a lot of this job description format from my friend Dea, who has done a lot more hiring than I have in the past. So some of this was templatized from things that has worked well for her in the past as well. When it came to, I mentioned location, I mentioned time commitment that I was looking for, mentioned that we were going to start off like a 1-month paid trial and based off of that, see how that went, and then continue the conversation for how things would shape up in the future. And then for compensation, I gave a pay range. So the range for this particular role I gave was 2.5K to 5K per month, depending on time commitment, skill level, and qualifications. I like having a range when it comes to compensation because one, it makes it clear to them what their range is so they can immediately know is it within their own budget or not. But then two, it also gives me the flexibility to, based off of my conversation with them, go it on like the lower or higher side of the range based off of, again, their time commitment, skill level, and qualifications that they can bring to the role. And then I also mentioned that as the channel grows and we start to bring more money, we can revisit this and adjust. And we have talked since about having different structures moving forward to the point of more of a like rev share type of model moving forward into the future. So that's kind of put up as upfront as possible with the initial job description. The next section is expectations, more about what I'm looking for within a role and a little bit about like who the ideal person is and what more qualifications I have there. And then I also have a section for more about how the role would look like for me to make sure that it would be a good fit for the person applying, because that's also a big thing that matters. And I think when it comes to job descriptions and jobs, it's really important to make sure that if you are applying to things, it's also a good fit for what you're looking for too. I have a little bit of a section about like tech stack and some of the tools that I use because bonus points if people are already familiar with those. And then finally, what I can offer the person who applies in terms of benefits or neat things that might come with working with me, and then how to apply. So that was the overall job description that we have. When it came to the application itself, I feel like the job description did a good job at like weeding out people who didn't want to read through the whole thing for the most part, but also gave enough of my own personality as well. So if people saw that, they would tend to have an idea of what they were getting into. The application is where a lot more, I think, filtering came through. So I can just like briefly run through that. We got name, email, where are you based? This is where I see, are they in LA? Are they not? If you're not local, you still willing to work US time zones? And then most important question incoming, why are you the absolute hands down best hire I can make for this role? Please be as specific as you could possibly be. I think this is kind of my version of a cover letter, I would say, when it comes to this particular role. I didn't ask specifically for a cover letter or for a resume. I don't really care about those by the formal function of it, but really just this question was probably like the most important question in the entire job description. And what I judged all of the applicants based on most was this particular question. Joelle had a banging answer for this one. I asked, how many hours per week do you watch YouTube? This is also really important for me to suss out, is someone just applying to things because they want to apply, or do they have like a genuine love of the craft? They genuinely love YouTube. They're genuinely watching YouTube. I asked how many years of experience you have within the YouTube industry. I asked have you been a creator or worked directly with a creator before? That's also really important to me. Whether you've worked with someone before or not, just having creator experience, even that comes from your own channel, is incredibly important, at least I believe, when working within the creator industry. I asked what's the longest you've worked with a channel? If you work with a channel, what channel did you do for them? And other channel related experiences. That's kind of, I think, if anything was resume-y, this would be the most resume-y questions that I asked here. Then I ask, who are two of your favorite YouTubers to watch and why do you like their content? This gives me a really good idea of what the person's, I guess, personal style and taste is and how they're thinking about YouTube. This is also a really fun one. What is one specific thing you would improve around this video? And this video was, a past video of mine was just how to come up with a killer video idea to blow up your channel. channel. I said, please elaborate on what makes this a good change or improvement to you and how you think the video would be impacted. This is a great way for me to understand their own critical thinking skills and how they judge and evaluate YouTube. I knew that I was bringing them in to be a very large part of my own process. And so them having a similar idea of what things could be improved or why they could be improved, I think would help a lot in determining fit. I asked, how do you see yourself growing with the channel over time? I wanted someone who was also very future oriented within this role and not just looking for something very, very quick to just come in, work for a month, get out. I asked, what aspect of YouTube / content creation do you feel the strongest in and the weakest in? This is good for me to understand what their own strengths and weaknesses are and how we can fit in with each other, because optimally we would complement each other well. And then where you see yourself in 3 years, typical, I'd say it's standard question to ask. And then any sort of relevant links or resources that they wanted to link just in case. Ideal number of hours per week you can commit to this role. This one was a really interesting question for me, and I'm glad that I asked this because my job description specified more of a part-time role, I would say, versus a lot of people answered this question with part-time hours and a lot of people answered this question with full-time hours. And that gave me a good idea of, oh, who are people who would actually be much more committed to this role than I originally thought. And then lastly, is there anything else you want to share? I would say very, very long application, but a long application by design, because people who are just mass applying to everything probably would see this and be like, it's not worth it. Or even as I could scroll through all of the list of applicants, I could immediately see if a line is this thick, okay, they did not put effort into this. Versus the ones that are really, really hefty, they wrote essays or paragraphs about why they might be the best fit or how they feel about a video or something else. So at least for me, I feel like obviously this process led to the greatest hire of all time on the entire planet. So take it or leave it, but that's what worked for me.
I'll take it.
What's interesting is that Joel was the second interview that I had. I mean, his application itself was exceptional. We actually just revisited that just now and read through, and he was like, dang, past Joel really had it going on. Your application was great. I think you made it so clear how much genuine passion you had for the craft of YouTube, how much work you had put into it individually on your own when it came to breaking down what made other YouTubers work and the amount of time you watched YouTube and even your taste in YouTubers and what you liked about them and the way in which you broke down my own video and the way in which you delivered the critical feedback about how it could be better. I think all of that led to, okay, I definitely need to interview this person. I think also there's one particular line that stood out to me about your application as well, of you saying in short, I'm all in. And I think I was definitely looking for someone who had that level of commitment and wanting to go all in on something. And you just laid it out for me and I was like, yes, he needs to be interviewed. I was also very intentional about my interview process as well because I wanted it to be worth it. I knew I had a very extensive job application process and form. So I was like, well, the interview should be answering things that I could not get just from the application. So very intentional in asking questions more to do to complement the interview versus just, complement the application versus repeat it. So there's this one section where just to kind of test overall knowledge of the YouTube space, because a big part of my channel is pulling different examples and recallability of different channels that exist out in the YouTube sphere. I will say my interview was probably more technical than most interviews within the space, but because of the nature of this channel, it was going to be. I had one section where I would ask the applicants to list or name YouTubers within different niches and formats, just to get an overall sense of where does their taste and knowledge of YouTube extend to? Are they really good with certain niches? Maybe they have gaps in other niches. It also helps me understand, again, where are their gaps and where are my gaps and kind of do we complement each other, just overall what that was. And you said you found that fun.
I did find it fun.
and that was major green flag. I was like, wow, this is someone who found this concept that some people might find intimidating or scary fun. And I find those things fun. I find it's a cool challenge to be ooh, how many YouTube channels do I know that I can name off the top of my head? And yeah, I thought you asked really good questions at the end of your interview as well. But really it was after your interview, I was it seemed our personalities would just fit a lot too, which I think for me was also a very big thing because I knew that this role would be so closely integrated with each other and that we would be working so closely with each other. You asked what, success was in my perspective, what a successful producer would look like. And when I told you that part of it was I would like them to be my friend, you seemed engaged with that. And I was like, okay, cool. Like we seem to be on relatively the same page here and didn't seem to scare you off too much. Not at all. So that was your first interview. And then that's when I decided to extend the work trial. And your work trial was also exceptional, but it was the way in which you communicated throughout every part of the work trial. You were very present and very active and kind of updating me along the way. And I think like you even had like separate like working documents that you had to show me as you were making progress through things, so I could even track your progress if I wanted to. And that sort of level of communication was something that I knew was highly important to me, especially considering that like we'd be probably working remotely since he's in Orlando, and making sure that we can communicate and it feels pretty seamless. And I think like just without me even really asking, I did mention that one of the things I'd be looking at is communication, but like you just nailed that out of the park. And I mean, the quality of the work was also good, at least on the editing and research side. And I knew that one of probably the biggest things I needed help on was honestly on the editing front. And like you nailed the test edit. It was just so good. I mean, we almost used that exact thing as is for the intro for that video. So it was just exceptional. And yeah, I think that's how I knew that you were the one. Hey guys, it's Aprilyn and Joelle from the future.
The conversation you've been listening to was recorded about a month ago, and there have been some developments since then.
For one, I have cut my hair. I got about 7 inches off, which is kind of insane. Please tell me it looks good.
It looks good. It looks good. And I'm not just saying that because you pay me.
Sure. But the second thing is that we have officially launched Creator Crew, which is a 6-month-long small group coaching program designed to help intermediate creators level up on YouTube. If you've been enjoying watching and learning from my YouTube videos, but want something a little bit more personalized and interactive, that's the goal of Creator Crew.
We're accepting 30 intermediate creators to work closely with over the next 6 months. And we're doing everything we can to make the program as impactful and actionable as possible, including workshops to level up your YouTube knowledge,
Personalized feedback on your videos,
action sessions to actually do what matters,
small group masterminds,
and of course, time with us.
Woo! There is so much more that we have to share, but Joelle really needs to get back to editing this video. So if you are interested in more details and want to apply for the waitlist, you can do so through the link in the video description.
Otherwise, leave a comment telling Aprilyn that her hair looks nice, and enjoy the rest of the video.
Bye! Yeah, that's a great question. Surprise! It's not just me working the channel. It's very, very, very much a team effort. So I worked solo on the channel since starting it up until end of November 2024. So for the first, the first 18 months of the channel, I was completely solo, doing everything myself, kind of. I started out working with an editor for the first few videos and then stopped working with them, did everything solo. And now it's a very integrated process. And I think the easiest way to kind of break it down is kind of going through the steps of the video creation process and kind of who does what. So we start with the idea. Ideation, I think, is a joint effort. I kind of like decide based off of the ones we have brainstormed which ones should be put on the calendar, which ones we should focus on next. After that, it should be titles and thumbnails. Sometimes we leave those a little later than we should, but titles is very much also joint brainstorm a whole bunch, decide on our favorite or favorites. Thumbnails, I would say you usually take the head on.
Yeah, so I typically do I'd say like mock-ups. I do a little bit of research to inform myself and just validate a topic a little bit of what kind of concepts might Aprilyn like or vibe with. Try to give a good amount of different options as well so that we have choices when we do kind of the initial review. So I start there. Then we have a couple of iterations of review where I show you some of the mock-ups, get some feedback, get an understanding of like whether we're on the right direction or we need to pivot completely. And depending on that, other iterations, more review processes back and forth until we land on something that we like. Hopefully 1 or 2 that we like.
Yes, absolutely. I'd say while he's chugging along with thumbnails is when I'll do research, and then kind of it's me, for the most part, when it comes to research and outlining and scripting, sometimes I'll need a second eye on the script because I can get very in my head about feeling like every script is the worst thing I have ever written in my entire life. And it can be useful to have another pair of eyes looking at that and either helping make sure it's not trash or telling me that it actually isn't trash and I'm okay.
We actually added that to our checklist. One of the checklist items is literally have an existential crisis, thinking that this video is trash, it's bad, and maybe we should scrap it and not do it again. And then in a future iteration, we're like, hey, maybe it's not that bad. So we've officially added that to the checklist because it happens literally every time.
every single time. After the scripting is done, we'll do another step called the annotation process. Annotating is something that's been very, very, very useful in making sure that we're on the same page for every video that we work on. Essentially, we go through the entire script from start to finish and like comment out what is visually happening on screen during that moment. So it could be B-roll that's happening, talking head footage that's happening, a screen recording, some full screen text, things like that. And at this point, I think you mostly do most of the annotations, at least the first rounds yourself.
Yeah, so I'd say like the last couple of videos, I start the annotations and move more onto like a review process where you kind of review the annotations, and if there's any additional ones, you add in feedback or extra annotations in there.
And then you take those annotations and turn them into a shot list.
Correct. We have a little template, like an Excel template, where it's essentially we just like try to categorize those. So that's kind of like V1 of annotations so that she has something to go off when it comes to filming. And while she's filming, I'll typically go through and add just more detailed annotations and then put those into a shot list where we kind of categorize it into B-roll, white screen animations, screen recordings, and icons or anything else that we might include in the videos.
Absolutely. So after I have the shot list, I kind of know what do I need to film on filming day. At that point, I will go into filming. I'll film everything all in the same, usually evening. I like to film in evenings. So I'll film all the talking head, all the B-roll that we need. Once I filmed everything, I send everything over to Joel where he'll take it away with editing.
So essentially there I start off with a rough cut where it's just editing out silences, taking out any ums, ahs, or mistakes in the actual like film that we have. Then I'll typically send that rough cut over to April Lynn as a V0. We use frame.io to kind of like garner feedback and go back and forth, make it a little bit easier. She'll leave some annotations on if she needs like some extra frames in between cuts and just general length or pacing and how we feel about that. Once we have that rough cut, recently what I've been doing is then kind of like V2, like an annotated timeline where I do some of the cut-ins, cut-outs, the simple edits within DaVinci, and the screen recordings or the elements that require a little bit more sophistication, a little bit more time, then those are just like annotated so we know where it's going to be when we put it into frame.io and we have a kind of clear visual without spending all the time of putting those in. Once that's been confirmed, then I move into just start dropping those in. So typically start like first half, put that into frame.io, get feedback. While she's working on feedback, I'll be working on the second half. And then it's more so just like a back and forth of like tweaking and polishing the little elements. And I'll then send that forward to April Lynn for her to do like music and extra sound effects and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to the editing, Joel does most of the visual edit. The only thing that's not in the visual edit, I would say, is that's under your wheelhouse are making a lot of the white screen animations. Sometimes you make them for the more complex ones or the bigger videos. Typically, I will make those. And those are all in Figma static PNGs, essentially. And then once those are done, he'll take them off to animate them within DaVinci. And then, as Joel said, once everything visually is done, it'll go back over to me for music and sound effects and like final little edits or tweaks or adjustments before we ship it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what both myself and Joel pretty much do when it comes to breaking down the whole video process.
100%.
So that's like the workflow that we have now. In terms of, was it clear from day one? No, kind of. We basically started with one thing at a time. So during your first week here, it was, at that point, I think I had the rough cuts, like the A cut of just cut A roll done, and then just kind of sent that over to you and you edited that. At that point, I think I already had a pretty detailed annotation as well for the script that you worked off of. And then from there, with every new video, video, I think we just like added more stuff that you could contribute to.
Yeah. Something we do as well is evaluate after every upload. We've gone back and looked at the process and like, how could we make it a little bit better? What worked, what didn't work? And the process that we just ran through was kind of like an evolution of some of those. And I'm sure it'll keep evolving and there'll be further iterations on like what can be improved, what can't be improved moving forward.
Yeah, I think that in terms of how to build a workflow of your own, I would start with what are the most tangible things that you think, one, you need help on, and two, is not the most complex thing to like offload or to onboard someone with. And then once they're comfortable with that thing, as Joel said, as they do the thing, check in and see, okay, is this process working? Is it working for them? Is it working for you? What parts feel sticky? What parts feel smooth? Keep the smooth parts, reevaluate the sticky parts, see, are there things that we could tweak to make those things more frictionless? And then over time, add more things to the plate as you get more comfortable with each other. But I think that exactly what you were saying about the not constant, but the continuous check-ins during, like after, let's say, every video or so to see how the process is working, I would say is pretty paramount in crafting a workflow that works for you over the long run.
I think first and foremost is, as you know, this is my first time being a creative producer. I've never held the role before. I've never really worked creatively with someone else to execute their vision. So I think early on there was a lot of just understanding what the role really meant. My vision coming in was thinking I had to perfectly execute everything. And I guess when I'd work on an edit, for example, I'd think, okay, the goal is for me to get to a point where I deliver a perfect edit to April in, where she doesn't have to touch it at all and it's complete and it's all good to go. And so I had some resistance when I would see like you having to tweak things or you wanting to add music or change music or sound effects that I added in there, because I would think, oh, I'm not doing my job correctly or there's something that I'm doing wrong. Whereas a part of that was also learning, I guess, the dynamic of working together, that you like to work on videos, you like being a part of the process, and also understanding that, yeah, creative work takes a little bit of back and forth and aligning visions and really having those conversations and feedback loops to really understand, find that middle ground or really execute on the vision then that you have in mind. And maybe me thinking of, I don't need that much feedback loops, let me just do the best I can early on and try to surprise her and try to impress her with this thing. And then because there was a lack of feedback loops, it'd be me working the wrong direction completely. And despite it being like good work, it's like that's not what I envisioned. Like I didn't want this sound effect here, I don't like this type of edit. And just the value of having those feedback loops and really understanding each other to then have those creative liberties down the line, I think was something really cool.
Yeah. Wow. That makes a lot of sense. I feel like that's just something challenging. As you said, working with another creative, it's like you can have your own. And I do feel like our styles were relatively aligned from the beginning. And that's one of the reasons why we got along so well. It's not like we're going from like, okay, Mr. Beast, fast car into like April and style. It's like, no, we had like pretty similar styles to begin with. And no one's going to be a 1-for-1 match in the beginning, right? So definitely makes sense. I think on my side, there were a lot of the struggles in the beginning. This was also my first time hiring a full-time team member, employee, hire, whatever. And there was a lot of, I think, internal struggles about, I was like, wow, okay, I have so much responsibility over what this role looks like for you and about how we work. Like I remember coming into like our first stand-up meeting and just kind of thinking like, oh, I have to lead this meeting. I have to figure out like what we want to do and how we want to work, and just realizing that when you're the one making the hire, the culture is your responsibility to foster, and just being very intentional about what sort of culture do I want to create and how can I do this. So I think that was a struggle for me, as well as early on, because of the full-time capacity of it and the fact that you came on during a sprint month. I am an overachiever. I know you're also an overachiever. We both work hard, but even so, there was a lot of question for myself, like, am I just asking too much? And I think my own internal compass was, well, as long as I'm doing the same thing, it's not like I'm just asking you to put in late nights, like I'm there, we're doing the late night together, we're doing the early morning together. But even so, I think that was like a big battle for me in the beginning.
So I think the answer to that is I didn't. Yeah, so obviously I didn't. This was the first time I applied, I think, to the specific role of YouTube producer, there was a couple of key elements I think I knew about already. One was I knew I wanted to be in the YouTube space, had been creating videos for myself for the past couple of years, had some success with it. I also knew there was some resistance, I guess, when it came to being a specialist. Like, I considered becoming a full-time editor for someone, or thumbnail designer, or working on some other elements, because I wore a lot of hats when it came to my own content. I knew a little bit of everything, but didn't really consider myself a specialist in anything. I really aligned with all of the elements that you highlighted that you wanted there, and thought it would be a really cool, exciting opportunity. So I think those were some of the things that kind of all aligned, translated to me. And overall, I thought, I wasn't sure at the time of applying, but it seemed to check all the boxes, and I'm happy I did apply, and happy that I am in this position now. I think there's a lot of value of starting from a point of creating content for yourself, just because it allows you to develop all of those skills. It allows you to become a student of YouTube, which I think is one of the most important skills in this role, is understanding YouTube from various perspectives. And I think working on your own channel allows you to improve upon that skill, but also allows you to wear various hats, to get to work on your own thumbnails, see what works there, learn about them, learn about optimizing titles and just general packaging. You work on video editing and intros, outros, everything to do with YouTube. So I think having your own channel, I think, is a hack for being introduced into the YouTube producer space. Secondly, I'd just say just being curious about YouTube, always being a student of it, learning from it. I guess that'd be my advice. So not sure if that's the most traditional route, but it's what worked for me, and I think it can work for you guys.
I feel like something that set you apart so much in your application was the fact that you had done it before. You had made a channel before. And I was able to look at your channel and say, oh, he has skills. Like, it's not just he is a student of YouTube, which I think is very important. And he's also shown that he knows how to apply everything that he's learned in his own videos. And I think it really set your application apart from a lot of other people who maybe said they were interested in YouTube, but never really made videos of their own, or only made like one video and then just never made a video again.
In all honesty, I'd say it does meet expectations in a big way. Coming in with the job description and our conversations on the role initially, a lot of it was centered around never doing just the same thing, and always like switching up different tasks and moving around and being a part of different elements of the video creation process. And I think that's a lot of what it's been. That's what I have mostly like enjoyed of the process, is being able to not just go from one edit to the next or from one thumbnail to the next, but being able to switch tasks a little bit and put my hands on everything and try it a little bit, I think has been really a lot of fun. So I'd say that aligns with what I expected. I guess for an element that I didn't expect is how much of like a shared vision we would have, I guess, on the channel. I've been surprised by how much you've iterated that it should feel kind of like a joint effort and should feel like a team, and that's part of like what brings you joy in this whole journey as well, is being able to collaborate and kind of bring out the best for the channel by working together and collaborating. So I'd say that's something I didn't expect from the producer role, but yeah, it's been great so far.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Things are working. All right. Well, those were all of our questions. I hope you found some of them useful or interesting. We're going to have a fun time editing this down because we've talked for like an hour and a half at this point.
Multiple battery changes.
Many battery changes. Just got a new camera, figuring that out. But thank you so much for listening and for watching. And I'm glad you guys got to meet Joel, the man behind the DaVinci Resolve. For most of this, if you want to see more of him in more videos, let me know. But otherwise, once again, thank you so much for watching. Keep creating. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you can. And I will see you in the next video. Bye. Cool. Woo!
Yeah.
We did it!
Yeah.